Good morning and welcome to today's webcast, When Should You Move from QuickBooks to NetSuite? Before we begin, I'm going to play a brief housekeeping video.
Welcome and thanks for joining us. Our webcasts are designed to help elevate your business performance. Transform your future for the better with advisory solutions tailored to your vision and supported by our collective technical resources. Our presentation will start in a few moments. Before we begin, here are a few things to keep in mind. You can customize how you both view our presentation and interact with the presenter. For better viewing, close all other applications and turn up your speaker volume. You can also adjust window size and placement or enter full screen mode using the controls at the top of the window or dragging the bottom right-hand corner to resize. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a series of icons, each relating to a different aspect of our session. You can download the group attendance sheet and a PDF copy of today's slides from the slide deck and handouts widget. You can ask our presenter questions during the webcast by typing a question in the Q&A window and clicking Submit. We'll do our best to answer all questions during the presentation or follow up via email. If you experience technical difficulty during today's presentation, refresh your browser by hitting the F5 key. As a reminder, the presentation you're about to see is not legal, investment, or accounting advice. We encourage you to seek the counsel of a professional service provider to apply this content to your specific circumstances.
Before we get started, I wanted to share our big news that Moss Adams and Baker Tilly have joined forces to redefine accounting, tax, and advisory services for the middle market. It's really exciting, and you can read more about it on our website via the link in the slide deck and handouts widget. With that, I'm pleased to introduce today's presenter, Chris Millet, Director. With that, I'll turn it over to Chris to get us started.
Thank you very much, and thanks to everybody who's chosen to join us today for our continuing informational sessions around NetSuite. Again, I'm Chris Millet. I'm Director in our Enterprise Systems Consulting Group, specifically with our NetSuite practice. And as you may have noticed from the title of our webinar, we're here to talk about when to know is the best time to move on from QuickBooks onto a platform such as NetSuite. It's probably one of the most common questions we get as we're doing evaluations or helping our clients do evaluations of what they should move on to next from a technology stack standpoint. So today we'll be going through really understanding QuickBooks and looking at some of the limitations as you grow as an organization. We'll go through some of the 6 most common signs you've outgrown your current system. What NetSuite can offer to growing organizations, and then some tips around making the smooth transition from a platform such as QuickBooks onto NetSuite. So first thing we really talk about today is really the QuickBooks journey that we see a lot of our clients go through. And this really has to do with why people get on QuickBooks in the first place. Well, QuickBooks is first and foremost, it's affordable. It's great for basic bookkeeping. So as business are going through a startup phase or don't have a lot of complexity to their operations, and they're really just in the need for something that's going to get the job done. You're able to produce financial statements. You're able to really keep track of what's going on from the financial day-to-day. QuickBooks is a great solution. It's intuitive and really is a perfect starting point for many small businesses. But as we've seen, as businesses grow and those operations scale, particularly around financial reporting needs, or things become more complex with the operation, then that's when we start seeing that limitation surface, right? So as we're moving on from kind of year 1 to year 2, and so forth and so on, and as we scale is when we start seeing people reaching out around, hey, what else is out there? What are my options? Maybe my current solution in QuickBooks really isn't getting it done for me and my organization at this point. So let's talk a little bit about some of the key areas in which you can start to notice when you've outgrown QuickBooks and it's time to move on to a platform such as NetSuite. So one of the first things that we're going to be looking at is multiple disconnected systems. So This is probably one of the most common things that we see, not just with QuickBooks, but other kind of smaller systems that people might get started with. And what we see is as their needs grow, as their businesses scale, they start adding on in a piecemeal fashion other systems that do different things. And there's really a lot of different reasons why this happens. Maybe it's from a budgetary standpoint, or people just don't know what they don't know, and they're not really informed in terms of what the best route is strategically to enhance your technology stack. So we see people using, obviously, QuickBooks for their accounting system, but they're using a different system for inventory, maybe something else for CRM, and billing, and this really creates those data silos and a lot of manual reconciliation work, which is probably the biggest opportunity cost that we see when using some of the smaller systems and then adding on a lot of these peripheral systems, is that the data and the systems doesn't talk to each other. So we're having to use most of our time up through manual processes in getting the data ready to be presented to us in a meaningful way. That leads right into those reporting requirements, right? So the more complex our reporting requirements are, if we're adding additional entities or companies or additional business units or additional capabilities or services throughout our organization, you're going to have a greater need for consolidated financials. You're going to have a greater need for forecasting capabilities. And one of the largest areas we see is audit-ready reports that QuickBooks really can't provide. In our NetSuite practice here, we work very frequently with folks on the audit side of our firm, and that's probably one of the biggest drivers for moving off of QuickBooks that we see is moving on to a system that is audit-ready. That you're not going to have a bunch of questions about why a transaction was made or doesn't have the proper audit trail, so forth and so on, that a system like NetSuite does provide out of the box. Another one that's common that we see is, especially once you start hitting capacity limits and performance issues. So whether we've hit user limits, data limits, this starts causing slowdowns. I've personally experienced this with some of the clients we've worked with where their entire QuickBooks database was crashing and they could not actually operate their system because they had outgrown the limits of what QuickBooks could handle, or they were having to use multiple instances of QuickBooks. So if you had multiple companies, kind of going back to the reporting requirements, you have several companies, they all had to have their own instance of QuickBooks. You had to dump all of their combined financial information to, say, an Excel sheet, and then manually update all of the financials so you could get a consolidated viewpoint of all your companies. The next one that we see is the need for global expansion plans. So I've touched on this a bit already, but adding additional subsidiaries, whether they be home country subsidiaries or you're expanding internationally, that's going to require a need for multi-currency and multi-entity consolidation, which QuickBooks just can't do. That's something that we'll see as we move a little farther into the presentation that NetSuite actually does very well. It's probably one of the leading platforms out there for this specific use case. I've touched on this already, but the cost of excessive workarounds, spending more time on manual processes and workarounds than actually spending time working on that strategic financial planning. We call that we're working in the business more than working on the business. It's kind of an old adage that I've heard quite a bit over my career, and because we have so many disparate systems, or our data is not connected, and we don't have a really good data strategy in place, we are seeing that the manual processes take longer to just get the information in our hands to make those strategic decisions that are really meaningful, are really going to guide the direction of the organization. Pretty much every conversation I ever have with anybody about any system, NetSuite just happens to be with the one that, the group that I work with right now, as our preferred tools set, is really about data strategy and data management. Really, how are you capturing your data? How are you aggregating, consolidating, and then presenting your data in a consumable fashion? And how quick quickly can that be done? The faster that you can do that, the faster you're able to understand what direction the business is going. You're able to understand what pivots you may need to make from your existing strategy. But it's very hard to do that if we're spending the majority of our time on manual processes and workarounds. And then lastly, the need for scalability. If we're looking for more of an intuitive platform that can grow over time, that's something that QuickBooks just won't allow you to do. Again, it's very good for that startup initial starting point, but when you're looking to be able to scale, whether it's today or in the future, NetSuite is a great solution to look at for that. One thing that we do quite often when we are working with clients is help them put together a technology roadmap around what their needs are going to be not only today, but 3 years from now, 5 years from now, and further on down the road. And so that they have a plan for how their technology is going to scale. And one of the main things to do that is with a singular platform that allows you to expand into additional capabilities, additional functionality as you need it, and not piecemeal it together with multiple disparate systems that aren't talking to each other. So those are kind of the key 6 things. There's probably more than that we could talk about, but those are the ones that we see most common when we're having conversations around helping people evaluate what the next thing is from the QuickBooks current QuickBooks solution. So let's talk a little bit about the cost of staying too long on QuickBooks. These are probably fairly obvious, but lost productivity. What we're seeing out there when we start talking to people about, how much time they're spending on that manual data entry reconciliation, it's really, at minimum 20, 30 hours per week or more. So again, as you can see, that's an entire headcount just to do manual data entry and reconciliation. Usually that spans across multiple headcounts depending upon the size of the organization and the complexity of the business, how many entities that we're actually trying to reconcile, right? And what that does is the delayed decision making. That strategic decisions are now relying on outdated information, right? So by the time we actually can understand what our data is telling us, it's too late. We're now working with antiquated information. There's been change, and as we've seen, especially lately with all of the advancements with AI and other analytic platforms where we can get things in real time and understand what's happening with our business in that fashion, spending all this time on manual reconciliation is just not going to work if you want to be successful long term. So. And then the last thing we have here is that compliance risk. Manual processes are very error prone. So especially if we're transposing information from one system to another, even if we're doing manual imports and exports of, say, Excel or CSV files, that can also be prone to error, and that is going to present audit risk. Again, this is one of the largest areas that we have brought to us from even our other partners within our firm. On the audit and even on the tax side of things, coming to us saying, hey, we need you. We'd like you to bring in and talk to our client a little bit about NetSuite because we're seeing some risk areas, either when we're looking at the audit process or what have you, that can definitely be prevented by a system that inherently prevents those things from happening because of the type of platform that it is. So again, to recap there, you're talking about cost of not being able to generate your reports in a meaningful way or in a timely way, spending all those times on manual workarounds, reconciliation, and then that manual entry is probably going to be the most consuming part of this, and just getting things into the system so that we can see what's happening there. So. Moving on, so for those of you that are not familiar with NetSuite and kind of what the capabilities are, what is NetSuite? Well, NetSuite is an Oracle-based solution, but it is a cloud-based enterprise resource planning platform. Well, that's a lot to say there. So what does that actually mean? It really means to you is it's a system that unifies all of your business operations into one single integrated system, okay? So you can run multiple parts of your business within one platform instead of having all of those disparate systems that are kind of get bolted together over time. We can use one platform to do all of our financial management, our CRM, inventory management, e-commerce, manufacturing, and so forth and so on. So that's the way the system is designed. It's designed as a singular platform that you can theoretically run every part of your business all in one. And what that provides to you is that real-time visibility. So you're looking at live dashboards, live reporting, all across the business operations. So if someone in, say, the distribution center is making updates to fulfillment records within the system that are going to inform someone, say, in the accounts receivable department that an invoice needs to be generated, that all is happening in real time, right? We don't have to send a bunch of emails back and forth. We're seeing the activity happen as it happens. Our dashboards and reminders are being updated in real time. So it really increases the efficiency to having everything on one platform. And these types of platforms are really built for those businesses that have outgrown, basic accounting software and really need those enterprise capabilities, but also without that enterprise complexity. That's really one of the other strengths of NetSuite is it will scale with you as you need to scale. So for a lot of our clients coming off of QuickBooks, we see quite often the initial phase of an implementation is really just replacing the accounting portion, right? And with some enhancements. So for instance, if you were on multiple instances of QuickBooks because you had 3 or 4 companies that you needed to do accounting and financial reporting for, well, that's an initial win right away because now I can consolidate all those instances into one instance of NetSuite. I can run all of my companies in one instance. I can get that consolidated reporting in one instance instead of 3 or 4. But I also can add additional functionality as I need to over time. So if I don't necessarily need a CRM or I don't need inventory management right away, I don't have to implement those things. I can implement those things over time, which in turn will reduce the complexity and the change management that I'm required of as I'm changing and scaling into this new technology stack. So several areas of benefit there from moving on to a platform such as NetSuite. Just some key info here in terms of a key comparison. Again, this is something we're asked for quite frequently. It's, hey, what's the difference between a NetSuite and a QuickBooks? We get asked to compare all kinds of different systems all the time, but this is our areas of conversation today. And so as we go down some of the key features that we see, these are related back to kind of our 6 reasons that we would move on from QuickBooks to NetSuite. Is first one is that multi-entity consolidation. QuickBooks is very limited, right? You usually will have to have multiple instances of QuickBooks in order to even run multiple companies, dump all that information into, say, Excel or into some other reporting consolidation tool, and then try to do your reconciliation from there, which again, as we've noticed, is super time consuming. And by the time we get our information, it's usually outdated for us to make prudent decisions. Within NetSuite, that's full support. So as I mentioned before, this is probably one of the biggest strengths of NetSuite is the ability to run really as many entities as you would like within one instance of NetSuite. They can be all home country entities using a single currency. They can be multiple international entities as well. We have some clients that have 4, 5, 6, 7 different countries that are all running within the same instance of NetSuite, entities in those countries with all different base currencies. That's the other nice thing is NetSuite's built-in functionality is to do that multi-currency conversion, right? So QuickBooks has some basic functionality there, but really nothing that anybody can really use on a scalable way, whereas NetSuite's functionality there is very advanced. You can operate in any real known currency within NetSuite itself, and it will do the automatic currency updates. So it automatically can connect to those exchange rates, and you will get that those exchange rates will update automatically for you within your instance of NetSuite. Inventory management. QuickBooks has some very basic. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, for about 25 years. I've used QuickBooks in the past. I understand what the limitations are there around inventory. You have some basic count, quantity, maybe location information at best. I know that it does have some add-on tools there that give you some additional function around tracking inventory, but it is very basic, very limited. Whereas when you move on to a platform like NetSuite, you're getting advanced inventory functionality. You're going to get that lot tracking, serial number tracking, multi-location, bin management, and as we see here, advanced WMS or warehouse management system functionality, where we're using mobile devices and scanners to do things like inbound receipts, internal movements, even from a manufacturing standpoint, and then of course outbound fulfillment of transfers, sales orders, those different types of things. CRM integration. QuickBooks doesn't offer that. You would have to bolt on a third-party tool such as a HubSpot or something, or a Salesforce, something like that. Whereas NetSuite has built-in CRM, right? And so this is something that comes out of the box. There's no additional cost to use the CRM within any instance of NetSuite. And so you're going to get, what we're finding is probably 90+% of the folks that we work with, the NetSuite CRM works great. Does it have all the bells and whistles that maybe a Salesforce has? No. But it definitely doesn't cost as much as that either. So, so that's all part of an evaluation process that we help our clients go through to see what their needs are going to be, see if the CRM, built-in CRM would work well enough, or if there's a need for an additional tool. We talked about the reporting. We all know, if we're a longtime user of QuickBooks, the reporting out of QuickBooks is very limited, whereas we have an unlimited reporting suite. We have multiple analytics tools within NetSuite that we can customize, we can make our own, we can share reports across different roles within the organization. We can share reports with stakeholders outside of our organization, outside of our using our NetSuite instance. So really an unlimited amount of reporting tools within NetSuite platform, both management, financial reporting, and then financial planning. I mean, there is no financial planning functionality within QuickBooks, whereas NetSuite, we can bring to bear their NetSuite planning and budgeting tool. Ours is very advanced FP&A planning, whether that be or traditional FP&A, whether it be workforce planning, whether it be product planning. Those are all things that we can do, all again within one suite of tools within the NetSuite ecosystem. And then we talked about the real-time dashboards. Many of our clients are using the real-time dashboards just to manage their daily work, to receive alerts of things that they need to be alerted to. And that's all happening in real time because everyone's using one unified platform. And then user scalability. So last information I have, and this may have changed, but is that QuickBooks, you can only have up to about 40 total users using that. Whereas in NetSuite, it's really unlimited, right? You're not limited by the number of people that you can have use your NetSuite instance. It's very scalable in that instance. So again, if you're looking to add additional business units or different areas of operation within the organization, you're not going to be hampered or limited by user counts that are going to put a drag on your system. So let's talk about some real world impact. A couple of different clients that we've had over the years here at Moss Adams, now Baker Tilly, within our NetSuite group. One instance comes to mind of a manufacturing company. This is probably one of the biggest impactful changes that was made for them. They took their month-end close from 15 days. We see this actually go out to 30 days in many instances, depending upon how many different pieces of data you're trying to consolidate. They reduced that down to 3 days. Think about what that does for your decision-making ability when you can actually get accurate reconciled financials within a 2 to 3 day period of month end and be able to pivot on a dime if you need to, depending upon what those financials say. They were able to eliminate 5 separate software systems and bring them all onto one platform. They had one system they're using for manufacturing, one for accounting, one for CRM, one for inventory management, one for warehouse management. We were able to bring them all onto one platform and achieve that 360-degree view of operations. Another example is a professional services firm, and this is another area that we haven't touched on as much, but NetSuite does have a full project management suite, full PSA, that can really help improve that project profitability. And the nice thing, again, because it's all on one platform, all that project management data around financials and resourcing and timelines and project plans. It's all in the same system. And they were able to improve their project profitability by about 28%. And it really was due to being able to automate things like resource allocation, being able to see that real-time client billing visibility, whether that be milestone billing, whether it be percent complete billing, whether it be charge-based billing. We have all kinds of capabilities around that. As you can see here on my pie chart here, it really takes that manual processes, which would consume at least half of our time before NetSuite, to really changing a lot of that time to reducing that manual process down quite a bit and being able to spend much more time on that strategic work. So just some overall numbers here from going from multiple systems down to one unified operational system. You can expect to see about a 75% reduction in manual data entry, 50% faster financial close process, and of course you're going to get that 100% real-time visibility. Those are going to be really the key things and to expect at minimum when you would switch from a multi-system environment down to a unified data system. So let's talk a little bit about the transition process. First and foremost, I would say the most important thing that we always recommend for our clients is the assessment and planning. Evaluate your current processes, define your requirements. This is a service that we offer to our clients quite frequently, especially in our NetSuite practice. We call it a business process review, or BPR. And really, we're going to take a deep dive into your business processes, whether that be on the accounting side of things or the operations side of things, you name it, and really notate what the key drivers are to make your business successful, and how do we align that with a new system, right? So the step one is by far the most important step in looking at the transition process before we even select a license set. So a lot of times we'll do this sort of assessment for our clients to even give them guidance about, what sort of licensing do you need to buy? And what does that look like from an implementation and change management standpoint? Do we need to do this in phases? What sort of rollout plan? But what this allows our clients to do is really have a game plan over the next several years, which enables you to really know what to expect next. You're not going to have those surprises. So the next one we have is that data migration configuration. This is an opportunity when you're switching systems to clean, map, and transfer data with expert support. Then we move on to training and go live, comprehensive user training and a phase rollout. We've talked about phases a few times during the talk today. It's really something we help folks with a lot, depending upon your internal resource aptitude, resource constraints, budgetary constraints, timeline, what have you. That's something we work on quite frequently, which all comes from that initial assessment and planning exercise that we go through. And then, of course, over time, you want to make sure you're doing ongoing optimization. This is not a one-time thing where we just kind of set it and forget it. We're always looking to get better, even if it's 1% each day. We're iterating this process, so we're constantly looking at our existing processes, what can be done better, what can be done more efficiently. But it's really all an interest in us being able to consume our data more efficiently in a more meaningful way, so we can lead to better decision making. So what sort of ROI and timeline are we looking at here? You should really start to expect most organizations, when they're making this change, a positive ROI within 12 to 18 months. We're looking at, initially you're going to have some initial investment because you're investing in a new system, you're investing in implementation costs. In many cases, when you're buying a system like NetSuite, they will incentivize that initial investment by giving some pretty significant discounts, because they do realize you're not going to get that ROI right up front. And so through your implementation timeline and your learning curve timeline, you should see over that 12 to 18 month period, start seeing that real return that we've been talking about has been going on. And then, some common concerns that I'd like to just kind of address as we wrap up here is your implementation timeline. Most implementations we see take about 3 to 6 months. Business disruption, we try to keep it a minimum because it'll be a phased rollout. You can run parallel operations, so it's not disrupting daily operations. Intuitive user adoption, comprehensive training programs and ensure smooth adoption. and of course, the investment piece of it. You can scale as you need to because it's a cloud-based system. So just to wrap up here, your getting started checklist would be, audit your current systems and pain points, define your business requirements and goals, schedule a NetSuite demo with an implementation partner such as Moss Adams Baker Tilly, develop an implementation roadmap, which is something we help people with all the time, and of course, assemble your internal project team. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions offline here. I know we're coming up on time, but I will turn it back over to close us out.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris, for a great presentation today. If you submitted questions, we will do our best to follow up with you after the webcast. Here's a link to an online survey where you can provide feedback for today's presentation. Please take a moment to complete this survey as your feedback is very important to us. Please also visit mossadams.com for future webcasts and other resources to help elevate your performance upward. Thank you for joining us. We hope you'll join us again next time.